Welcome to the People Leaders Podcast, the audio resource for managers and business leaders creating high-performing teams. Join leadership and team development experts Jan and Michelle Turkelson each week as they explore both subjects from every angle. Through practical tips, valuable insights, and compelling interviews with leadership experts around the world, you'll learn how to bring out the best in your staff and how to give your best as a leader.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Jan.
So good to be in the same room at the same time.
I know.
Doing our podcast.
Fantastic.
So what are we going to do?
So today, let's have a look at the question that we get asked a lot when we do our Myers-Briggs workshops with people, and I have team members come up and say, wow, I'm the same Myers-Briggs four-letter type as such and such in the team. How come we're so different in a number of areas? The other question is that, God, I'm so different on my Myers-Briggs type, yet we have some things in common. Now, not everything can be explained using the Myers-Briggs framework. However, we do have an answer to some of those questions that may be useful. Drum roll, please. And that is, they may have a different MBTI Step II report.
Result. That's right. And that's what I love about the Myers-Briggs. It is quite, there is a depth to it.
And we haven't even touched the depth, in Step 2. And I suspect that over the years there already is a Step 3, but there'll be Step 3, Step 4. And what we're going to do is explore the Step 2, because a lot of our people in our community have done their Myers-Briggs Step 1, and this is really taking it to the next level to understand the depth and the breadth of your personality and also other people's personalities.
And the way in which it is expressed is, so all the different questions that are in the Step 1, they look at it from a deeper perspective. So looking at distinctions, the way in which these four-letter types are expressed.
Exactly. So it's almost like looking at those subtle personality differences between people who might share the same four-letter type, or the subtle differences or the subtle similarities that people have who have a different type.
Yeah. So for someone who has done Step 1, what do you think are the benefits of having the Step 2, doing the Step 2?
Lay down is there. Anyone who wants to increase their self-awareness and to improve your effectiveness, it all starts with you. So that's number one. Number two, if you just want to have like a customised personality profile for personal development reasons, is another reason.
And individuals and teams looking to pinpoint areas of, like where they're the same or the compatibility, where there's potential opportunities for discord or conflict.
Totally. It's fantastic for that. So we'd recommend any team, any individual who's undergoing coaching to have a go and get their Step 2 done with obviously a qualified practitioner.
Yeah, and what it also does, it helps you with strategies and tips to actually handle the differences, but also leverage the actual strengths of the team. And what I love about the Step 2, that it really hits at the heart of who you are.
Yeah.
It's your unique personality fingerprint, because you and I are the same Myers-Briggs, ENFJ. However, we are different. It's our favourite quote, same but different. Yeah. And so that's another way that we can demonstrate our uniqueness. Yeah.
Absolutely. And bring that into a team context. Once, it's almost like leveraging your differences again within the context of a team.
Yeah, and the pinnacle of it actually really creates a good platform for precisely targeting personal development. What you need is going to be different to what I need based on our unique personality types.
Yeah, types, and also its context, the job that I'm in, the role that I'm performing, the objectives that I have to achieve.
Yeah.
So why don't we jump straight in? And today, Jan, maybe we just focus on introversion, extroversion.
Oh yeah, my favourite.
Yeah.
Well, they're all my favourite. However, this is the one that people we find are most interested in because they can relate to it. And as we know, introversion and extroversion is where you get your energy from. So what we're going to have a look at is what are those 5 facets that describe extroversion and introversion a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, so facets is one way to describe it. Another way to think about it is, what are those subsets that sit underneath this broad brush thing called introversion and extroversion?
Yeah, and where we get our energy from.
That's right.
All right, so the first facet is the way in which we connect with others. So for extroversion, you would be more initiating in the way that you connect with others. If you're have that preference for introversion, you would be more receiving in the way in which you connect with others. And the beauty about the step 2 is there is a mid-zone as well. So let's give some examples.
Yeah, so if I could just say, so if we have a scale of 1 to 5, on the 1 might be the initiating up one end, and down the end of the scale is the receiving, which is the introversion. I mean, you could flip them around, but it is a scale.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of that is called the mid-zone. And the mid-zone is where you could do one or the other depending on where your energy's at. But that's what we're looking at. So we're looking at the subset of introversion, extroversion, and this is one of 5 subsets. Yeah.
So an example of the way in which you connect with others, if you're an extroversion, which is around initiating, you're more assertively outgoing in social situations, the way in which you plan and direct gatherings. So you enjoy linking people whose interests are similar. So that's an example.
Yeah.
Now, if you were on the receiving aspect of that introversion in the way in which you connect with others, it would look like that you would consider social obligations unimportant and leave them to others. And you may be seen by others as quiet and shy. Now, the mid-zone of this would look like that you would initiate conversations in social situations with people who already know, or if your role calls for it, like if you really have to, or that you're willing to introduce people if no one else does. You know what I mean? You'll step up to the mark.
Yeah.
So think about that as a facet for you in the way in which you connect with others. Are you more initiating or are you more receiving?
And that's the thing about your subsets, is that you could be an extrovert that came out on your step 1 report. However, you might be a receiving extrovert, which means, you don't find those social situations all that important to you, and you prefer a one-on-one, hate all that sort of thing. Okay, so that's ways to connect with others. The next way that we can look at the subset, I suppose, is communicating your feelings and thoughts. Now, on the extroversion side, you're either expressive, and on the opposite end of the scale, which is introversion, you can be seen as contained. So the expressive types, they talk a lot. They're easy to get to know. They share everything about themselves, and they are really open to expressing their feelings whenever, in the post office, in a team meeting, they will do that. So that's an expressive type. And then the opposite side of that, in the introversion zone, is contained. So these are the types of people who keep their feelings to themselves. They can seem like they're hard to get to know, and they just assume that others aren't really interested in their thoughts anyway. So that's the opposite, expressive or contained. And the mid-zone is that, you might reveal bits about your personal information if you're comfortable, with the people that you're with, and you might show more interest in others' feelings, like questioning them rather than revealing your own.
Oh, totally. And I think this is where we are different in our extroversion, is that when the communicating feelings, because like I'm,
more expressive.
On a plate, absolutely. Within 2 minutes you'll know all about me, whereas you, it takes a little bit more. However, you're good at questioning people and bringing out what they know about themselves.
Thank you, Jean.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's the second subset.
Yep. Let's have a look at the third one. And I want you to think about this. So this is about the breadth and depth of relationships. So if you are more extroverted in your breadth and depth of relationships, you are more gregarious. If you're more introverted in the breadth and depth of your relations, you're more intimate. And then obviously we've got the mid-zone. So what would that look like if you were gregarious and more extroverted? You enjoy being with others, prefer not to be alone too long, enjoy belonging to groups, and have many acquaintances and friends. Yeah. So this is the type of person who has dozens and dozens of WhatsApp groups and things like that. Now, if you're more intimate, in the breadth and depth of your relations. You seek close one-on-one involvement. You'd rather relate to a few significant people than in a large group. Now, neither is right, wrong, good or bad. It is your preference. And the mid-zone looks like, you find that your degree of comfort with strangers depends on the situation or the context, and you appear outgoing at times and reserved at others. So you have that flexibility or that preference to be flexible. So that's the third way that you could be different in your extroversion and introversion.
Your breadth and depth of relationships.
Yeah.
Good one. All right. Okay, so the next one is the ways that we communicate, that we socialise, and the way that we learn. So there's a lot in this one. So you, on one scale, you're active, you're an active, socialiser, communicator, the way you like to learn, or you're more reflective. And if you think about introversion, extroversion, active sounds more extroverted, reflective sounds more introverted. So on the active side, you're probably going to learn better by doing, hearing, observing, like to communicate in person. You'd rather talk than write about a topic. On the opposite side, if you're more reflective, you're going to learn better by reading and writing. You can concentrate better on, reading written material rather than on listening to someone talk. And also you're going to remember material better if you actually read it. So that's on the opposite side, active, reflective. And if you're in the mid-zone, it could look like, you're going to prefer to learn new things in person. And then more familiar things you might prefer by reading, for example. Another example might be that you can be at ease actively participating in events or quietly observing them. You can do either way.
Yeah, and even quietly observing is still an active participant, but because the world is kind of like congratulates the action and the extroverted expression, we actually don't consider that to be participative because we can't really observe that energy.
Yeah, because it's going on inside their head, and that is an issue in teams sometimes. Someone says, they don't really participate much, but you don't know what's actually going on in their head. And if you did question them, they've probably got a really good insight as to what's happening.
Yeah, and I think
don't assume.
That's right. And I think that's the important thing about, extroverts is be masterful questioners because that allows, the opportunity for the introvert to express what it is that they know and that they can actually share. Now, the reason why we're telling you these facets is that if you are managing people, start to look at those nuances and those differences in the way in which people express themselves, because as a people manager, if you know what floats someone's boat, what really gets them motivated, you are going to get a more effective team. You're going to know when to push and pull.
So a perfect example of that is the facet that we've just looked at, Jan, in terms of how people like to learn. And in a work environment, we're learning all the time. So there are some people who like to communicate and be communicated to in person when they're learning new information, and others just can concentrate better if they're going to read some material. So if you are a good people leader, you would accommodate for both types. It's not always going to be, okay, there's a presentation, I'm going to walk you through it.
That's right. And when we design programs, especially, we incorporate adult learning principles, we do have time for people to read first, then we actually give them a question to then focus their learning, give them a question to problem solve, and then feedback. So there is that kind of pattern that we incorporate. So let's have a look at the fifth facet, and this is the level and kind of energy. So if you're more extroverted, your energy is going to be enthusiastic. If you're more introverted, your level and kind of energy is going to be, quiet.
Yeah.
So what would that look like? Me, the enthusiast. So like being where the action is, often seek to be the centre of attention, not so much, and catch others up in your enthusiasm. So they're really good at influencing, and they found that the two types of facets in the influencers, the best influencers, are extroverted feelers.
Yeah.
Then we have the quiet, the introvert types, which is the level and kind of energy. So they prefer calm, serenity, silence. That's how you show someone that you're an introvert, that you love them. Give them space and quiet. Sometimes they're bothered by noisy circumstances and places. So sometimes this is where extroverts have to modulate their energy and their volume and their pace. And they also like they do have a calming effect on others. especially people leaders in quite chaotic situations and who are more introverted.
And I know that some people who have done their Myers-Briggs Step II, and they might have come out as extroverts, but on this subscale, they come across as, preferring quiet, and they go, oh, that makes so much sense to me. And about that other person, because they are quite calm, calming and quiet and not as gregarious. That's why, because on their subscale of level and kind of energy, they're on the quiet range, even though they are an extrovert on all the other facets.
Yeah, that's right. And
very
so
revealing.
The mid-zone would look like, I'm ready to show enthusiasm when you know people or you know a topic well. And that's one of the, I suppose, strategies that we talk to people who have introversion, is that speak about a topic that you know well, because then you're likely to be more expressive and incorporate, all your senses. The mid-zone can also look like that you're seen to be quite differently by people who see different sides of you. So you could be seen as a little bit of a chameleon in that aspect. Yeah. So the 5 facets we've just gone through. So as a people leader, think about those 5 facets. So we'll just snapshot the 5 facets, and when we're reading these 5 facets, think about a particular team member or someone that you are having an issue with, and could it be this particular facet that is different?
Or in you. You can think about it in terms of you as a people leader. What are the different facets that you might see in yourself? So let's just do a recap, Jan. So number 1,
ways to connect with others. And it's either initiating or receiving.
Yep. The next one, communicating feelings, thoughts and interests. You can either be expressive in how you do that or contained.
Then you've got breadth and depth of relationships, and you're either gregarious or intimate.
Yeah. And the next one, ways that you communicate, you socialise and you learn. You can either do that in an active way or a more reflective way.
And then the last facet is the level and the kind of energy that you express. So it's either enthusiastic or you're quiet. And if someone wants to actually flex their style, think about those facets and go, okay, so can I communicate in a way that is more active? Or if you are quite active, do you want to flex your style and be a little bit more reflective?
Great. And I think, Jen, it might be worthwhile us putting together a little template for people to use in conjunction with this podcast, if they wanted to spend some time thinking, which one am I? As a prelude to perhaps actually doing a step 2. Better, but we'll give you something anyway. Okay. Get you going.
Over and out.
Okay, bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the People Leaders Podcast. For show notes and other resources, please visit us at peopleleaderspodcast.com. And while you're there, you can subscribe for future episodes so you can continue your own leadership journey. And please be sure to share this and other episodes with your friends and colleagues. The People Leaders Podcast is brought to you by the Experts on Air Podcast Network.